Welcome everybody to the Money Soapbox. This is week number 10. For those of you that are new to this series, this is all about stewarding your finances, going from financially unhealthy to financially healthy, building a healthy lifestyle. How do we do that? We first go through a financial detox. We've frozen our spending, and then we have been recording or jotting down on a log or notebook, whatever you decide to use, all of your expenses day by day. Then we go back, we analyze, we look at them. And so we see certain patterns that reveal toxic spending. Then we place each of those toxic spending into a specific bucket. Because before we can tackle it or deal with it, we have to name it. Not claim it, but name it. And then we move on to deal with it. So last week we talked about the convenience bucket. If you have not seen that video, I would encourage you to take a look at that. And I'll go ahead and leave a link at the bottom for that video. So today we are going to talk about the overconsumption and hoarding bucket. Now, you might be thinking, I'm good on this one. I don't overconsume, and I'm definitely not a hoarder. After all, when we hear the word hoarder, we picture someone living in a cluttered space, barely able to walk through their apartment or their house because there's piles of stuff everywhere. But the truth is, overconsumption is a widespread issue. It's embedded in our culture here in the United States. You've probably heard the saying, we don't have a money problem, we have a spending problem. And that applies both at the government level as well as on the individual levels. So let's take a closer look at how this plays out in our own lives. So, what falls under this bucket and what is the root of overconsumption? The first one is addiction to spending or spending addiction. I don't know which way is the correct way to say that. Addiction to spending or spending addiction. Okay. Nonetheless, hopefully you know what I mean. So some people are shopaholics. They're addicted to spending. That was me at one point. If it's on sale, it must be bought. After all, it's a good deal, quote unquote, right? And you never know when it might come in handy. Yet years later, that item is still sitting somewhere in your home or apartment unused. Now, think about what you could have done with that money had you invested it instead. In the meantime, you chose to buy a product that is collecting dust on the shelf many, many years later. Now, the retail industry uses marketing traps to manipulate us into feeling like we need more than what we actually do. One of the biggest culprits, and you see this everywhere, is the BOGO deal, the buy one, get one free. It feels like a steal, but are you really saving if you didn't need it in the first place? You're just contributing to overconsumption. Now, think about sales, clearance sales, 50% off. Is it really a deal? Is it truly a sale? Or just a Jedi mind trick to get you to spend? Now, retailers, they're not in the business of losing money. So if something is 50% off, you can rest assured they're still profiting while you're departing with your cash. Many clearance sales and markdowns are carefully planned psychological pricing strategies designed to make you feel like you're winning, while in reality, you're just spending unnecessarily. So, what is the newest marketing trap? It's the TikTok shop, where the whole goal is to influence you to buy things you never planned on buying. It's not about what you need, it's about keeping you spending your money. Now, like I said earlier, at one point I was a shopaholic. I was stuck in this cycle. Okay. I was spending based on what was on sale instead of what I needed. And when I stopped the spending, which was, let me see, back in 2021, no more spending. I froze it. We are now in 2025. I have not bought anything. I still have products 4 years later that have not been open. So think about that. All that money I was spending. Now, I didn't think of myself as a hoarder, but I was hoarding products and all kinds of stuff unknowingly when I could have bought what I actually needed and invested. What is the next item that falls under this bucket? It's what I call the lifestyle inflation. The more you make, the more you spend. Or the keeping up with the Joneses effect. Or in today's world, it's keeping up with the people in social media. Now, you are managing just fine on your current income, but the moment you get a raise or bonus, suddenly you feel the urge to upgrade your lifestyle. You now need a new car, a bigger house, a luxury apartment, luxury items. You convince yourself it's necessary. It wasn't necessary before, but now it's necessary. Where in reality, if you didn't need it then, you don't need it when you get that raise or your bonus. Now, imagine instead of upgrading your lifestyle through buying stuff, upgrading your lifestyle by investing. Investing is going to take you a whole lot further than stuff that's just going to collect dust. It's going to break down over time. You're going to have to replace it. So, the next item that falls under this bucket goes in line with the spending addiction. So, it's the emotional spender, where you're spending money because you're bored, you're stressed out, or you've been influenced by social pressure. If everyone else has it, you feel like you need it too. Now, the tricky part is most emotional spenders don't even realize that they're shopping out of emotion. For me, I did not make the connection. Someone had to point it out to me. And once they did, it was eye opening. But until somebody brought it to my attention, I did not connect the two. And so, what was happening, anytime I needed to feel better, I would go out and spend. So, ask yourself, is spending a hobby for you? This is a big sign because if you made shopping a hobby, then you're an emotional spender. Instead of making logical purchases, you allow your emotions to dictate when and what you're going to buy. Now, the truth is, emotional spenders are trying to fill a void that cannot be filled with material things. But because that void is never satisfied, they continue to spend, spend, and spend rather than addressing the root issue, which is the void. If you are an emotional spender, you end up with piles and piles and piles of stuff, and you don't even know why you have it, why you bought it. Contributing to the over consuming and hoarder bucket. The next item that falls under this is the buy now, pay later trap. Now, with this buy now, pay later option, it's easy to rationalize overspending because you're not paying right now. So it doesn't feel like you're spending money. What you're really doing is kicking the financial burden down the road. You're kicking the bucket down the road until later when you're stuck with payments you can't keep up with. And this cycle leads to financial bondage. You fall for this trap because you're satisfying the immediate urge or the immediate desire. Gotta have it now. Even if you don't have the money, gotta have it. You end up making that purchase and then you forget about it. And once the high wears off and the bill shows up 90 days later or a year later or whatever the contract is or whatever the agreement is, then we're faced with the reality. We're like, oh my God, like, how am I going to pay this? So we go from the high of buying it to the shock. Now, let's talk about hoarding. What is at the root of hoarding? Hoarding often comes from a scarcity mindset. The fear that you will not have enough. So it's based on fear or rooted in fear. So you start stockpiling products. You grab that extra bottle of shampoo or toothpaste just in case. You're holding on to items for years and years, afraid to let them go because you might need them someday. But hoarding isn't just about stuff, it's about money too. Some people hoard money out of fear. Now, this is not about how much money you have or how much money you don't have, because even if it's a little, they hold on to it for dear life. Instead of using it, leveraging what they have, even if it's a buck, to build wealth. They cling to every penny, refusing to invest or grow their finances because they're afraid of losing it. But stagnant money isn't working for you, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Money was not meant to be hoarded, it was meant to be put to work. It's a tool. Instead of you working for the money, put the money to work for you. If you're making financial decisions out of fear, then you're going to miss a whole lot of opportunities. And ultimately, you're creating your own stagnation instead of growing. So, holding on to your money for dear life instead of putting it to work for you is going to keep you stagnant right where you are. Actually, not right where you are, because we don't stay in the same. We're either growing or we're moving backwards. So you're going to be moving backwards, and then you're like, but what's going on? I'm holding on to every penny. Well, you just answered your question. If you're still wondering, do you have an overspending or hoarding problem, or you think this doesn't pertain to you, look around your house. How many pairs of shoes do you own? Men, how many ties do you have versus how many you really wear? How many TVs are in your house? Ladies, how many bottles of foundation are sitting in your drawer? How many outfits do you have versus how many you actually wear? Look in your kitchen. How many sets of dishes do you have versus what you use? Now, we only have 7 days in a week or 365 days in a year. Ask yourself, do you really need all those clothes, all those shoes, and accessories? If you really think about it, a lot of these items, when we end up moving, we either give it away or we end up selling it for a fraction of what we paid for. So, not only are we not investing, but we're also losing all the way around, because you're never going to get that money back. Now, it's not just items, it's food as well. 30 to 40% of food in the US goes to waste. Now, ask yourself, how much of the food in your fridge, pantry, or cabinet ends up in the trash? That's money that could have been used to build a healthy financial lifestyle, but instead it's ending up in the trash. So now that we know what falls under this bucket, how do we stop overspending and hoarding? So let's go ahead and dive into some solutions. For the people like myself, can't pass up a sale, we have to recognize the strategy that's being used. It's a sales and marketing trap. And the goal is to make you believe that you need something. See, a sale isn't a sale, it's a tactic to get you to part ways with your money. So the mission is to make you believe that you're getting a deal so that your money ends up in their registers. Businesses aren't losing money, they're making money. If it's truly a need, you won't need someone to convince you that you need it. A sale or marketing campaign shouldn't determine what you buy. The next thing is removing emotions from spending. Now, I struggled with this for a long time. So if this is one of your struggles at the moment, how do you deal with this? How do you break that? Whatever it is that you are wanting to buy, whether it's on sale, somebody convinced you you need it, or whatever the situation is, walk away from it, pause for 30 days. Whatever you would have spent on that item, put that money into a savings. Separate it from your main account and into a savings. If it's a good deal today, it's still going to be a good deal in 30 days. Now, if it's somebody trying to convince you that you need it, they're they're not they don't want you to walk away and come back in 30 days. They are going to tell you you need it and you need it now. Now, what happens in 30 days? Well, your emotions will have settled, and now you're able to make a rational decision versus an emotional decision. Now, a lot of people use shopping as a way to cope with their emotions, their feelings, whether they're feeling stressed out, they're bored, or they have a need to feel important, validated, whatever those feelings are. A lot of people, they use shopping as a coping mechanism, but they don't realize it. So, what can you do? You replace it with a healthy coping mechanism. Now, for me, it was working out. Whenever I would get stressed or angry, upset, or I was trying to make myself feel better, I would hit the gym instead of hitting the stores or the malls or online shopping. So exercise became my outlet instead of shopping. So find a strategy that works for you. Maybe it's journaling, maybe going for a walk, or picking up a creative hobby. Whatever helps you manage emotions without spending money. Now, you will know if you use shopping as a coping mechanism if, after you buy something, once that emotional high wears off, now you're feeling guilty. So, what is the next one? Okay. So, if you find yourself constantly trying to keep up with the culture by upgrading your lifestyle every time you get that raise or that bonus instead of investing it, then ask yourself, why do I feel the need to compete with others? Whether it's the neighbors, the friends, or even strangers on social media. Social media has made it so that people are competing with total strangers, people they don't even know. They're trying to keep up with their quote unquote lifestyle. The next question you want to ask yourself is, why do I seek validation outside of myself? And what void am I trying to fill? Because this is not about other people, this is about seeking validation and filling a void. And before you can tackle that or address that, you must understand why. So, this is the first step. So, if you want to break free from the buy now, pay later trap, don't fool yourself, because if you can't afford it in full today, you're not going to magically afford it later. Delayed payments don't make something more affordable. So, what's the solution? Just say no and walk away. No and walk away. Say no to yourself. As a matter of fact, you have to practice saying no to yourself so that you can say no to other people. If you're one of the people that struggle with pleasing people and setting boundaries, this is the perfect way to start. Say no to yourself first. It starts with you. The next one, breaking free from the scarcity mindset that leads to hoarding. So, whether you're hoarding things or money, it's all rooted in fear. And so, how do you overcome fear? You have to face fear head on. You cannot run away from it. You cannot hide from it. You cannot deny it. You cannot look the other way. You have to face fear head on. And how do you face fear head on? The first step is to declutter your space, or I should say, spaces, because you want to start with your home. But then you're going to continue on to declutter your car, your workspace, whether you work in corporate America or you work for yourself, you have a home office, and you want to begin to sell or donate those items. Now, if you're honest, more than half the things that you have, you don't need it. You're just emotionally attached to them. And that's what makes it hard to initially part ways with them. So, by getting rid of things that you don't need, you're breaking your emotional attachment to things. Think of it like you're breaking off a relationship. It's tough at first, but it gets easier, and eventually you'll be glad that you did. Now, a lot of people don't realize this until after, but the more you declutter, the lighter and less chaotic you're going to feel, because clutter creates mental stress and anxiety, and we don't even realize it. So, how do you break free from the hoarding of money or that scarcity mindset? Well, the first thing is pay your bills in full, not partially. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with anything? A lot of times we pay bills partial out of fear of not having enough. And we don't even realize it. So, how do you break that? Just pay your bills. You got the money there, just pay it. Don't don't wait, pay it. You're going to have to pay the bill anyway. So just pay it, get it out the way. And this breaks the scarcity mindset telling you to hold on tightly to your money. So when the fear of lack creeps in, replace it with the truth. Start to say to yourself, I have more than enough, right? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Opportunity comes to me. My God provides for all my needs according to his riches and glory in Jesus Christ. Philippians 4:19. Start creating separation between you and money. Don't cling onto it. Instead, put it to work. Transfer a certain amount into a savings or investments. And we'll talk about investments in this series. But for the time being, if you don't know where to invest it, at the very least, put it into a savings. You want to create separation and break off that emotional attachment and start treating money as a tool. Now, the next thing that you can do is practice generosity. So, the next time you see someone in need, give. Now, it may feel uncomfortable at first because you're looking and you're like, okay, I only have $5 and I need this. And so the tendency is to hold on to those $5 for dear life. Okay. Now, I don't remember which video I told the story of my father. My father was a giver. He did not give according to what he had. If someone needed something, he would give. He wasn't scared to give because he always said that his God was always there for him, always made a way for him. So he wasn't scared of giving. And oftentimes, I mean, if somebody needed money and he would tell the person, I know you need 20 bucks, but all I have is $5 to my name. So here, I'm going to give you this. And the person would tell him, no, I'm not going to take your last $5. And he would give it to them and say, don't worry about it. There's more. There's more of that coming my way, because he believed that God never let him down. And surely enough, my father, he rolled in abundance. He never went without. So if he gave his last dollar to that person, within days, an opportunity would come his way that would pay him two, three, four, $5,000. I mean, people would always look at him and say, you must be one of the luckiest people on earth. But he always attributed it to God, always. The whole point of me telling that story is not for you to give your last dollar. The whole point is my father was not operating out of fear. You do not want to operate out of fear or make decisions based on fear. Now, we see an example of this in the Bible in Matthew 19, when a rich man asked Jesus how to enter heaven, and Jesus told him to give all he had to the poor. And the man walked away, unable to let go. So even though that man was wealthy, his wealth owned him instead of him owning his wealth. So if you are emotionally attached to money, to things, the quickest way to break free from that is just to give. Whatever you're holding on to dear life, give. It gets easier. Every time you give, it gets easier. And you're breaking free. Let's see, how do you break free from food hoarding? You buy only what you need by planning your meals in advance and creating a grocery list before you shop. Now, if you think about it, most of us, we don't make a list. We just go to the grocery store and we start buying what's on sale or the cheapest things. What can we get for the biggest bang for our buck? And so what ends up happening is we start buying all this stuff, we get it home, and some of the things we end up buying, we don't use it. Then it goes to waste and into the trash. You may think that you are saving, but you're not. And sometimes people like to go to the grocery store because they want to stock up, because they don't want to make multiple trips to the store. But the reality is, it's important to know which items to buy in bulk and which should be purchased in smaller quantities. Otherwise, you're going to end up wasting both food and money. So, you need a shopping strategy. So, the first step to financial freedom isn't more money, it's a transformed mindset that leads to making wise financial decisions. If more money were the answer, then ask yourself, why is the richest country in the world, America, drowning in debt? And why are so many Americans broke despite having higher incomes than most of the world? So, financial lack isn't about income, it's about habits, it's about mindset and discipline. If you don't master those, there's no amount of money that will ever be enough. So, as we continue on this journey where we're tracking our expenses, take a moment before making that purchase and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Record that emotion next to the expense in your tracker. As you go back and review, you're going to start to see a pattern and see what emotions are driving you to overspend. Now, for me, it was every time I needed to feel better or every time I needed a boost, I would buy myself something new and shiny. That was my pattern that I needed to break. Now, you're probably listening to this and you might be thinking, wow, this sounds like a lot of work. But let's go back to money mindset shift number 2, where I talked about shifting our perspective to the realization that we don't own the money, we are stewards of it. We are managing it on behalf of the kingdom of God. If you go back to Matthew 25, scriptures 14 through 30, it's the parable of the talents where the master gives each servant resources or talents based on their ability before he goes off on his trip. And so when he returns, he expects an account of how they managed what was given to them. And so the same is true for all of us. We have all been entrusted with resources. And one day we will all have to give an account to the true and only provider, and that's God. So this isn't just about holding ourselves accountable, it's about being accountable to God for what He has given us or entrusted us with. Think about it this way: when you get hired for a job, that's not the end of the story, right? You're expected to report back to your employer or whoever hired you and share your progress, your contributions, and your results. So if we're all going to be held accountable. Why wait? It's something that we're not going to get out of it. So then why wait? Let's just start managing our resources wisely. And as we start managing and stewarding our resources according to the principles of God, then He starts increasing our resources, because then He knows that He can trust us with more. So this is it for this video. I'll see you all on the next video when we are going to break down the next bucket.